The living entities merged into the Supreme at the time of dissolution are compared to honey. In the honeycomb, the tastes of different flowers are conserved. When one drinks honey, one cannot distinguish what sort of honey has been collected from what sort of flower, but the palatable taste of the honey presupposes that the honey is not homogeneous, but is a combination of different tastes. Another example is that although different rivers ultimately mix with the water of the sea, this does not mean that the individual identities of the rivers are thereby lost. Although the water of the Ganges and the water of the Yamuna mix with the water of the sea, the river Ganges and river Yamuna still continue to exist independently. The merging of different living entities into Brahman at the time of dissolution involves the dissolution of different types of bodies, but the living entities, along with their different tastes, remain individually submerged in Brahman until another manifestation of the material world. As the salty taste of seawater and the sweet taste of Ganges water are different, and this difference continuously exists, so the difference between the Supreme Lord and the living entities continuously exists, even though at the time of dissolution they appear to merge. The conclusion is, therefore, that even when the living entities become free from all contamination of material conditions and merge into the spiritual kingdom, their individual tastes in relationship with the Supreme Lord continue to exist.
Igurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Shahagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sadivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parishana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hodi Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're continuing to read from Krishna book about the prayers of the personified Vedas. And here Srila Prabhupada discusses the topic of merging in Brahma, merging in the Supreme, and argues that even though we may merge in Brahma, we keep our individual identities. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. He gives two examples. One is of honey. Honey may appear to be homogeneous, but it's taken from different flowers, different kinds of honey have different kinds of tastes. Sometimes they mix this honey with that honey, or the honey itself is a mixture from so many honeycombs. Some bees have gone to this flower, some bees gone to another kind of flower. So it may appear to be all one, but the honey gets its nice taste from a multiplicity of tastes. Then the other example is that rivers merge in the ocean. That's commonly heard point. But Srila Prabhupada says that even when rivers merge in the ocean, they keep their individuality. Ganges has been merging into the ocean for thousands of years, and other rivers have also been merging into the ocean. Welcome, Tulsi. Hare Krishna. Other rivers have also been merging into the ocean, but the rivers have kept their individual identities. It's not that they've all become one because they all merge into the ocean. They all merge into the ocean and they all keep their individual identity also. So in a similar way, even though the living beings at the time of dissolution may, or at the time of liberation, may merge into Brahma, they keep their individual tastes, they keep their individual identities. Merging doesn't mean that everything becomes one. Anything about that? Okay.
The personified Vedas continued, Dear Lord, it is therefore our conclusion that all conditioned living entities are attracted by your material energy, and that it is only due to their mistakenly identifying themselves as products of the material nature that they are transmigrating from one kind of body to another in forgetfulness of their eternal relationship with you. Because of ignorance, these living entities misidentify themselves in different species of life, and especially when elevated to the human form of life, they identify with a particular class of men or a particular nation or race or so-called religion, forgetting their real identity as eternal servants of your Lordship. Due to this faulty conception of life, they are undergoing repeated birth and death. Out of many millions of them, if one becomes intelligent enough by associating with pure devotees, he comes to the understanding of Krishna consciousness and comes out of the jurisdiction of the material misconception. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is confirmed by Lord Chaitanya that the living entities are wandering within this universe in different species of life, but that if one of them becomes intelligent enough by the mercy of the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then he begins his devotional life in Krishna consciousness. It is said, Harim vina na mirtim taranti. Without the help of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot get out of the clutches of repeated birth and death. In other words, only the Supreme Lord, the Personality of Godhead, can relieve the conditioned souls from the cycle of repeated birth and death. The personified Vedas continued, The influence of time, past, present, and future, and the material miseries such as excessive heat, excessive cold, birth, death, old age, and disease, are all simply the movements of your eyebrows. Everything is working under your direction. It is said in the Bhagavad Gita that all material activity is going on under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The Vedas continued, All the conditions of material existence are opposing elements for persons who are not surrendered unto you. But for those who are surrendered souls and are in full Krishna consciousness, these things cannot be a source of fear. When Lord Nrsingadev appeared, Prahlad Maharaj was never afraid of him, whereas his atheist father was immediately faced with death personified and was killed. Therefore, although Lord Nrsingadev appears as death for an atheist like Hiranyakashipu, he is always kind and is the reservoir of all pleasure for the devotees like Prahlad. A pure devotee is not, therefore, afraid of birth, death, old age, and disease. Sripad Sridhar Swami has composed a nice verse in this regard, the meaning of which is as follows. My dear Lord, I am a living entity perpetually disturbed by the conditions of material existence. I have been cracked to pieces by the smashing wheel of material existence, and because of my various sinful activities while existing in this material world, I am burning in the blazing fire of material reactions. Somehow or other, my dear Lord, I have come to take shelter under your lotus feet. Please accept me and give me protection. Srila Narottam Das Thakur also prays like this. My dear Lord, O son of Nanda Maharaj, associated with the daughter of Rishabhanu, I have come to take shelter under your lotus feet after suffering greatly in the material condition of life, and I pray that you please be merciful upon me. Please do not kick me away, for I have no other shelter than you. The conclusion is that any process of self-realization or God-realization other than bhakti yoga or devotional service is extremely difficult. Taking shelter of devotional service to the Lord in full Krishna consciousness is therefore the only way to become free from the contamination of material, conditioned life, especially in this age. Those who are not in Krishna consciousness are simply wasting their time, and they have no tangible proof of spiritual life. It is said by Lord Ramachandra, I always give confidence and security to anyone who surrenders unto me and decides definitely that he is my eternal servant, for that is my natural inclination. Similarly, Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the influence of the material nature is insurmountable, but anyone who surrenders unto me can verily overcome the influence of material nature. The devotees are not at all interested in arguing with the non-devotees to nullify their theories. Rather than wasting time, they always engage themselves in the transcendental loving service of the Lord in full Krishna consciousness.
Yes. Is this a little louder than it needs to be, Bhavan? Hare Krishna. Is this a little louder than it needs to be? Less. Little less. Otherwise, I think it's amplifying my breathing, which you don't really need to hear. Yes. So we've gotten a sort of a capsule summary of Krishna consciousness. And the conclusion is that one should surrender to Krishna, and Krishna will take care of anyone who surrenders to him. And finally, Prabhupada says, don't waste time arguing needlessly with those who are wasting time in pushing this theory or that theory. Just be fully engaged in transcendental loving service. Anything so far? Okay. Yes. Tulsi.
Very nice person, very educated, almost professor.
Switch.
Haribo. So I was traveling with a person who was very educated, like a professor of literature in some university in Delhi. And we were speaking about so many topics, the Vedanta and the Saddarshanas and this and that. And then at some point, because he knew everything, but he was not really accepting Krishna. So I asked him, so do you accept that there is the Supreme and he's the person? He said, well, to tell you frankly, I'm not sure. Some of the commentators are saying yes, but some others, like for example, Shankara, he's presenting different theory. So it's what Srila Prabhupada is saying, no need to waste time. And at the end, I tried to say something, he was not really eager to accept.
Those who are a little fortunate can pick up on the message of Krishna consciousness and begin to serve. those who are less fortunate, we give them a chance, but they may not, no amount of argument may be enough for them. So we try to benefit them, give them prasadam, let them hear chanting of Hare Krishna, maybe give a donation, maybe take a book, one way or another. But just arguing on and on may not be fruitful. Thank you. Yes.
The personified Vedas continued, Dear Lord, although great mystic yogis may have full control over the elephant of the mind and the hurricane of the senses, unless they take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, they fall victim to the material influence and are never successful in their attempts at self-realization. Such unguided persons are compared to merchants going to sea on a ship without a captain. By one's personal attempts, therefore, one cannot get free from the clutches of material nature. One has to accept a bona fide spiritual master and work according to his direction. Then it is possible to cross over the nescience of material conditions. Sripad Sridhar Swami has composed a nice verse in this connection, in which he says, O all-merciful spiritual master, representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when my mind will be completely surrendered unto your lotus feet, at that time, only by your mercy, I shall be able to get relief from all obstacles to spiritual life, and I shall be situated in blissful life. Actually, ecstatic samadhi, or absorption in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, can be achieved by constant engagement in his service, and this constant engagement in devotional service can be performed only when one works under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master. The Vedas therefore instruct that in order to know the science of devotional service, one has to submit himself unto the bona fide spiritual master. The bona fide spiritual master is he who knows the science of devotional service in disciplic succession. This disciplic succession is called Shrotriya. The prime symptom of one who has become a spiritual master in disciplic succession is that he is 100% fixed in bhakti yoga. Sometimes people neglect to accept a spiritual master, and instead they endeavor for self-realization by mystic yoga practice. But there are many instances of failure, even by great yogis like Vishwamitra. Arjuna said in the Bhagavad Gita that controlling the mind is as impractical as stopping the blowing of a hurricane. Sometimes the mind is compared to a maddened elephant. Without following the direction of a spiritual master, one cannot control the mind and the senses. In other words, if one practices yoga mysticism and does not accept a bona fide spiritual master, he will surely fail. He will simply waste his valuable time. The Vedic injunction is that no one can have full knowledge without being under the guidance of an acharya. Acharyavan Purusho Veda. One who has accepted an acharya knows what is what. The absolute truth cannot be understood by arguments. One who has attained the perfect Brahmanical stage naturally becomes renounced. He does not strive for material gain because by spiritual knowledge he has come to the conclusion that in this world there is no insufficiency. Everything is sufficiently provided by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A real Brahmana, therefore, does not endeavor for material perfection. Rather, he approaches a bona fide spiritual master to accept orders from him. A spiritual master's qualification is that he is Brahmanishta, which means that he has given up all other activities and has dedicated his life to working only for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. When a bona fide student approaches a bona fide spiritual master, he submissively prays to the spiritual master, My dear Lord, kindly accept me as your student and train me in such a way that I will be able to give up all other processes of self-realization and simply engage in Krishna consciousness, devotional service.
So this is not optional. Tad vigyanartam sagunameva abhigacchate. If one wants to get the benefit of actual realization of God, then it's imperative. One must approach a bona fide spiritual master. Samitpani Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. Is it loud enough? Can you hear us at all right? Okay. Samitpani Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. The spiritual master should be coming in the disciplic succession, and he should be fully engaged in the service of Krishna. Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. If someone thinks that without taking shelter of a spiritual master, he can achieve perfection, it's said that he's like a person trying to cross the water on a stone boat. Any question? Yes.
Maharaj, just trying to think how to be diplomatic here. So we must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. This afternoon, Kadamba Swami was reading some stuff from your website. From your website.
My website.
About accidental versus intentional. I don't want to open that so much, but
accidental versus
fall down.
Accident. Fall down.
About your 6-part thing about the sin versus the sinner thing from your website from 2006. So, in relationship to the whole conversation going on at the moment about apichet, so when the disciple sincerely wants to take shelter of a spiritual master, at the time, in their eyes, the spiritual master is bona fide. And we have to go based on what we can see in our senses. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors or in the mind. We just have to go based on Sastra and what we can see, because we're sensual beings. So what would you comment about the position of a disciple after the spiritual master has fallen from that standard? And what about us associating with the works that are done by that individual when we thought they were in good standing? I don't want to name names, but there's a book about chanting Hare Krishna, which is very nice. But now the individual is not, in good standing. So,
well, there are different things. First of all, when we say fallen from the standard, that should be seriously fallen from the standard, not that something that's not of much consequence. He didn't file his GBC report for the year, or something that's just not of great import. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that it's not very lightly that one gives up the shelter of the spiritual master. In the Bhagavad Gita, Pichet Suduracharo Bhajate Mam Ananyapak Sadhureva Eva Samantavya. He must be considered saintly, even if he's done something very much contrary to standard behavior. If he sticks to devotional service seriously, he has to be considered a sadhu. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's purport to that verse is emphatic, beyond emphatic, that he still must be considered saintly. I've mentioned it several times, but I've never brought it to the class. That purport is very emphatic. So, all right, he did something, but Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, if I have it right, says that in such a case one should wait for some time. This is discussed by Narhari Sarkar Thakur, by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. that in the event that the spiritual master in some way falls down, one should wait for some time and see. Because if he comes back to the standard, then what was the problem? Obviously, it's a problem. It's not very good, but it's set aside. He's engaged in the service of Krishna. He has to be considered saintly. The nature of this material world, Srila Prabhupada explains, is that generally things go parallel. Our devotional service and our living in this world go on parallel lines. But sometimes there's a cross. Something from the material world crosses with our devotional path, and the devotee gets temporarily knocked off course. Srila Prabhupada, as an example, our Brahmananda Prabhu was the temple president at 26 2nd Avenue. So Prabhupada said, even if you see Brahmananda walking down the street smoking a cigarette, still you have to consider him saintly. Maybe some friend has offered him a cigarette and he was accustomed to smoking before, but then he realized, Swamiji said not to smoke and so on. So he comes back to the standard. So generally things run parallel, but sometimes they cross. Sometimes they cross, and the devotee that shows up as a discrepancy. But if the devotee is seriously engaged in Krishna consciousness, devotional service, then Kshipram Bhavati Dharmatma, he very quickly comes back to the standard. So the disciple should not be quick. Okay, it's happened to others, now it's happened to me. Bye-bye, Guru. I'm not such a fool that I'm going to be under his guidance. And he tosses away the relationship. No, you should be patient and wait for some time and see. Then there are conditions under which the spiritual master may be rejected. Karya, Vijnana, what is that? Utpata, Pratipannas, Parityago Vidhiyate. If the spiritual master loses his discrimination, a Vaishnavopadishtena, Mantrena, like that, he becomes against the Vaishnavas and devotional service. He becomes habitually sinful, loses his discrimination, and carries on like a materialist or a Mayavadi. Then Pratyago Vidhiyate, one must give him up. But not so easily, not so quickly. Elsewhere, there's three or four quotes about this. One or two are from Mahabharata, another is from another place. It's been a while since I've looked. They all amplify this point. If you don't give him up, and he's going on sinful activities, and he goes to hell, and you go to hell by following him. Or the example may be that one accepted some spiritual master before coming to Krishna consciousness. Now you see, he's just a Mayavadi, he's a womanizer or something. You can give him up quickly. He's not a Vaishnava, Guru Nasyat. Then you give him up. But if he was a Vaishnava, and he's still a Vaishnava, only some temporary cloud is there, then we wait to see. Yes?
Just a follow-up question, if I can. Mm-hmm. You said if the spiritual master is falling down and continues to fall down, then he goes to hell and the disciple goes to hell for following him. Mm. But what if the disciple is following that individual's past works, books?
Yeah, well, that was the other part of your question. There are books, there are instructions. So sometimes we may read those books, or we don't reject. Prabhupada was giving instructions about what could be published in, or what could be read from Gaudiya Mata, or what could be published. Prabhupada said, or things written after such and such date, they are not at all good. So that means that after such and such date, people may have deviated, but before then, all right. All right. Yes, they were following. They were representing the truth as handed down. So why do we have to suddenly reject it? Now, we may not have a taste. That's a different thing. We may feel, no, I just don't want to read it. That's a matter of preference. But it's not that, oh, he fell down, he wrote this book and 10 years later he fell down. So I'm not going to read this book because it's bogus. No, the conclusions are still good.
And is it when somebody says, oh, don't read this book, he's fallen down, and then my response would be, but at the time he was in good standing and philosophically it's sound. Is it just the taboo of, is it just a cultural society thing as opposed to
it's up to you. It's not, there's no rule and there's no Vedic injunction as far as I know that if someone has fallen down, then you can't read anything he wrote beforehand. So it's someone's preference that I don't want to read a book written by a person who later fell down. Or I don't want to read a book by this particular person. That's his choice. And we have to respect that. He no longer has an interest in reading that person's book. Fine. But it's not a Vedic injunction that now everybody has to, I'm not going to read it and you shouldn't read it. And you're nonsense if you do read it. You have a different take on the matter. He has a different take on the matter. In the absence of a Vedic injunction, you're free and he's free.
Hare Krishna. I heard a story one time when Srila Prabhupada was around that there were some devotees living in a temple, and the wife of the temple president started offering like chicken on the altar to Radha and Krishna, and the devotees found out about this, and they were like shocked, but they and I think they must have mentioned it or something, but they kept serving, like or I'm not exactly
okay.
sure
Let's get the story right.
Do you know the story?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was involved.
Whoa.
The story has been stretched a little bit. There was our GBC man at the time was involved with he was a sannyasi, but he was cultivating a lady who was supposed to be a Japanese lady and the heiress to the Toyota fortune. And she was living in the temple and being treated with great honor and respect because she was being cultivated for her potential contribution. And there were much that was wrong with that also. It became, like devotees were enlisted to be her servants and so on. It was rather much. And at some point, and of course it was questionable because he would be cultivating this woman by long discussions with her in private and so on. So enough warning signs were there. But at some point there was some meat item discovered in the refrigerator, a temple refrigerator. not a big item, something in a jar. And someone brought it to my attention and said, this is going on. And in the context of my understanding of things at the time, I said, there must be some mistake. And like, what, somehow the wrong jar is there, or something is not supposed to be there. It's not a big deal. And that was that part of the incident. Not that chicken was being, chicken cacciatore was being served on the altar or something, no. But that was what happened. And someone wrote to Srila Prabhupada about it and said, how can Jayadvaita, I was a brahmachari at the time, be editing the books when he's, obviously off. And Prabhupada wrote back, in essence, don't worry about it. He said that that he has not, that I didn't want to get involved, and that I said it was a mistake or something, and that it wasn't, essentially Prabhupada said it wasn't a big deal. And the reading behind the lines, between the lines, it's, mind your own business. So Prabhupada didn't take it as a great disqualification. He didn't make an issue of it. Later, the whole boil was lanced, and everything came out. And there'd been sort of two groups in the temple, those who'd supported the GBC men and were sort of loyalists, and those who, said, this is nonsense, and some of them left or they protested in one way or another. And Prabhupada, while all this was going on, he was very silent about it. He didn't weigh in at all. He quietly sent 2 or 3 GBC men to find out what was going on and report to him, but he didn't make a stir at all. But after it all came out, this woman wasn't even Japanese. She was a well-known New York Chinese prostitute. So, excuse me? No, Toyota's a Japanese family, and she was Chinese, and there were no prostitutes in the family, and so on. So it was Maya at work. And I later wrote to Srila Prabhupada and said that I thought that I'd been contaminated by bad association, to have that kind of lapse of judgment. And Prabhupada wrote back, in essence, he said yes. And I forget exactly, but, be careful. But he supported that by bad association, one's judgment can be clouded. And those who protested, he said, they could not tolerate. He said they were real devotees. So there you have it, eyewitness report.
The version of that story that I heard was very different, and the moral of the story was relevant to the previous point. If I may, share why I thought to even bring it up, was because the conclusion, I think, and when I heard the story, was that the devotees who stuck around and kept serving, even though there was this bogus stuff happening in the temple, Prabhupada said that they were good devotees for sticking to their service. And so
Prabhupada said that too.
Okay.
Both things were there.
So, and that was relevant for me because even if our guru does have some, accidental fall down, if you will, or whatever the case may be, if we continue with our service, then there's no fault in us.
That's for sure. Not that if my guru falls down, then I leave Krishna consciousness. I stop chanting. I go and find a job at a car repair shop or something. No, that under all circumstances, let me continue.
Right.
Because as Prabhupada is making such a point that devotional service is the eternal engagement of the soul. So I'm going to give up my eternal engagement because someone had a temporary fall down. No. Or even, you could say, semi-permanent. Still, I'll stick to it. I'll stick to the path. Under such circumstances, one may simply look for, one may wait, that I mentioned. One may look for alternative guidance. Shiksha gurus may be there, or after some time, one may seek reinitiation. Punaroy mantra grahan koribe, Bhaktivinoda Thakur should receive the mantra again, means be reinitiated. Or one may take shelter of a Shiksha guru for instruction and guidance. But not that I have to leave. Not that my mother used to say, not that because your sister jumps off the Brooklyn Bridge, you have to jump off the Brooklyn Bridge. Your guru fell down, so you might as well fall down too. That's, no, you stick. And he may come back to the standard. We hope so.
Sorry, I can. I was just thinking that I have this experience. This made up version of this pastime has been relevant for me quite a few times, because also in my dealings with other devotees, sometimes it's like, I don't know what their intentions are. I don't know if they have positive intentions or if they mean well, or if they're envious or prideful. But I know that if I do whatever I'm doing with the proper consciousness, then whatever consciousness they have doesn't matter. So it's been like, does that make sense?
Yes.
Does it make sense why it's...
We have many experiences where the guru has fallen, or during Prabhupada's time, some big leader would fall, sannyasi or GBC man, someone that people had a lot of faith in. And then naturally your confidence is shaken. And if he couldn't make it, what hope is there for me? But we see that those who one may simply carry on. And that person, Krishna may help bring him back to the standard. He may come back. Or it may wait till the next lifetime or whatever. Nahi kalyana krit kaschit durgatim data gacchati. It's not lost. He'll continue. But not that because someone else has stumbled or fallen, I have to stumble or fall or go away. Where will I go? That's where will I go? To Maya. Maya's not going to help me. The impersonalists, the voidists, the materialists, they're not going to help me. So let me continue to take shelter of the devotees' devotional service. And whatever I got from that person, that's my permanent asset. The person, some of the people who were influential early on in helping me in Krishna consciousness, from the very beginning, fell down long time ago. But not that, well, if they fall down, then I'm going to leave. And whatever whatever good I got from them, that was good. That's my permanent asset and their permanent credit. So that will not be lost. That will be good. And we hope and pray that in the future they'll revive their devotional life. Or in some cases, it was mixed. They did, they didn't, they did, they didn't. Some didn't. But not that whatever they told me was bogus. They told me they were early on. That means they were all personal associates of Srila Prabhupada. Swamiji said this, Swamiji taught us that. So now I have to reject it all? No. It still has value. Just like in the evening, we've been taking something called koi. Koi is, I don't know what you call it. It's called flaked rice. The kind of rice that you throw at festivals, it's crinkly kind of stuff. What is that in Hindi? I don't know. Abal or something. Anyway, there's a kind of, it's not puffed rice, but it's something like puffed rice. And you buy it in bulk from the store, and the grains are all puffed. But some of the grains will have the shell still clinging to it. And so you have to go through it and pick out the shells. And usually you can't pick them all out. Sooner or later you're going to get a little bit of shell along with your rice. But it's not that I have to reject the rice, because some of the grains had the husk still attached to it. You leave aside the husks and you take the rice. That's Chanakya. That one should pick up a nectar from a pot of poison, gold from a filthy place. What is it? Learning even from a person who's ugly, is that what it is? And Sri Ratna Dushkaladapi, and a qualified girl, even if she comes from a low family. So one leaves aside the unwanted thing and takes the valuable thing. Pick the nectar from the pot of poison, not that it came from a pot of poison. I reject the nectar. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Yes.
My understanding, if you're in
a little closer,
if you're wondering about your spiritual master, if somebody is, wouldn't it be a mistake to make that decision on your own? Surely, my understanding is you have to actually follow the GBC, or you would never make that decision on
would
your
it be
own.
a mistake to make that decision on your own? Not necessarily. It depends on how. Sometimes it might be a mistake to. I didn't say it. It's up to you. You're an individual. You have your own intelligence. You have your own training. You're supposed to have read the books and know something. So on your own initiative or your own good judgment, you may make a decision. That decision may be, as they say, wait and watch, right? In medical world, wait and watch. We're not going to intervene. We're just going to watch and see how things develop. Or it may be, I'm out of here. Or it may be, and I'm not disturbed. So that's up to you. Now, would it be wise for you to seek counsel of people that you trust? Definitely. You have, especially seniors, who are sources of reliable guidance. That's up to, that would be wise of you. I'm thinking like this. This is how it seems to me. But what do you think? So you get some, superior guidance. That's good. As far as official decisions, one should recognize that they're sometimes made in response to differing needs. We need to satisfy these people. We need to satisfy those people. We need to establish this. We need to do that. And therefore, it may not exactly be the best decision for you. It may be sort of a publicly, what's the word? the best decision that could be made, taking into account all the people that you have to satisfy or all the circumstances that you have to take into account. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's that in your particular case, it's the wisest decision. In addition to which, even the demigods may reach the wrong decisions sometimes. And you can reach the wrong decision also on your own without anybody's help. So therefore, it's wise, it would be wise. And certainly we do take into account when, even though we may not always be 100% confident of decisions made by managerial entities, we take it seriously. These senior people have decided this and that, so that should be also put on the scale, but it may not be absolute. Is that okay?
Because my first guru, we had some problems, and a lot of people...
Excuse me?
We experienced that, and a lot of people just became extremely critical and disappointed on their own, and they left. So we lost some people.
That happens.
And it was very unfortunate.
That happens. From Prabhupada's time, the guru didn't leave, but people who were like respected as Shiksha gurus, as senior devotees, as pure devotees, as wonderful leaders, sometimes fell down or left. And then, the reverberations would go on throughout the society, and some people would be critical and some people would leave. So it's not new. It's not new, and people become bitter. I trusted this person, and now da-da-da-da-da. So that will be the position of those who are less mature in Krishna consciousness. The mature person, what is that? Yasmin stato nadukena gurunapi vichalyate. Even under the most unfortunate circumstances, he remains fixed. So it's understandable. Those who are not so fixed, they may go, and maybe they'll come back, or maybe that will be their permanent or ongoing loss, that they've gone away. They've lost because Kamala Shraddha. There are 3 levels of faith: first class, second class, third class. First class devotees, unshakable. Second class devotees, also generally unshakable because he knows the Shastras, he's got a good understanding, his faith is based on good knowledge. And so he generally also, but a third class devotee has sort of tentative, pliable, soft faith. And he's just hanging in because he likes the food, or the company is nice, or the chanting is blissful, or he has faith in the wonderful people he's met, or he doesn't have a firm grasp of his actual existential position as an eternal servant of Krishna, of the necessity of devotional service, of the terrible consequences of placing oneself under the influence of the illusory energy. These things are not so clear to him, or he's not so convinced. And so in something happens and he goes away. Someone leaves, or someone stole his shoes, or whatever it is. He says, "That's it, I'm out of here." Whatever it is. And people, Swamiji said they didn't go to the moon, or there's so many different reasons why people leave. Maya says, you're not going to still stay there, are you? And he thinks, well, yeah, no, actually, I'm going to go back to college or whatever it is. So it's understood. In one sense, these incidents increase the faith of the more advanced devotees because it's in line with expectations. In the fight against firecrackers? Yeah. What's the occasion?
Might be the construction. Might be the construction work also. They are unloading the stone.
That sounds more like it. It's been a long time since Dwali. So it's in line with expectations. Prabhupada says we're fighting a war against the illusory energy. In that war, some soldiers may fall. We expect it. Mama Maya is Daivi Esha, divinely empowered. So if someone falls, well, we expected some people to fall. We'd be surprised if no one fell. We'd be shocked. We'd be shocked. And at the same time, we see that this person has done some service. That's his permanent credit. Sometimes we see that they come back and pick up where they left off, and everything goes on. Kshipram bhavati dharmatma. So the experienced devotee sees that this is, it proves the philosophy. We never said that, no, you just chant Hare Krishna and guaranteed you'll never fall down because once you've chanted, no. But if you've chanted, then even little swalpam apyasya dharmasya, little service done is your permanent credit. It may save you from the greatest danger. So the devotee who's more experienced has a lens through which to see clearly. For the less experienced devotee who doesn't know the philosophy, not that familiar with the books, not so well established in practice, he's disturbed and he may leave, or he may stay. Either way, it can go either way because he's not strongly fixed. But the second-class devotee, first-class devotee, just like Prabhupada, the whole institution fell apart. His Guru Maharaj established a society. Imagine if ISKCON fell apart, just dissolved. What would you do? Most of us would be looking this way and that way and be confused, and so many would just go somewhere else and this and that. Prabhupada just kept going. There was fighting. The senior members were taking one another to court, and the whole institution basically collapsed. And still Srila Prabhupada kept going. Well, if this institution collapsed, then I'm going to go back to my pharmaceutical business. No. He stuck to the service of his spiritual master and just see. So Prabhupada said, therefore, we should try to come to the second-class platform at least. Is that okay? Yes, Krishna Kirtan.
Say you go on a roller coaster. You're going on a roller coaster knowing that there's a remote possibility there could be an accident. You could fall out of the chair, the thing could fall down. But because for a long history of time, there's never been a reported incident, you go on. But then on the first loop of the roller coaster, you feel something not quite right. So you become tense. And then you're apprehensive for the whole ride. Am I going to be okay? You've been in this for 50 years now or longer. And you've seen, as you just cited, your own leaders and stuff, people close to you have drifted. And how do we not have a pessimistic or how do we prevent ourselves being alert to worrying, is this okay? Is this a sign? How do we just be confident and just carry on having faith?
Well, one thing is you can be critical and wonder. That's not against the rules. It's not that I'm engaged in devotional service, so everything must be fine. All the people are the best people. They're all doing the best things. They must all be pure devotees because I want to be optimistic and not have a critical view. It's not that we have to live in lollipop land. We can be. You can keep a critical mind. The critical mind means not criticizing everyone. He's probably doing this. He's probably doing that. How do I know he's not doing that? But just knowing that things can happen. People may have difficulties, this, that. Not everything will be correct. And therefore keeping something of, what do they say? If we're keeping your intelligence, critical intelligence, that's allowed. But by strict practice and by knowledge of the Shastras, you should have a clear trajectory. By strict practice, your mind remains pure. If we don't strictly practice, then our minds become dull or confused, and Maya gets in and says, this, that, what about this? Are you going to believe that? Because what is that? The dust is settling on the mirror of the mind, and no one's washing it. If we don't keep washing the Cheto Darpana Marjanam, if we don't keep cleansing the mirror of the mind, dust will settle in, and we won't be able to see clearly. We won't be able to see clearly. And on the other side, if we do chant, follow, then our consciousness will remain clear and Krishna will help us. And that's the one side. And the other side is that we should know the Shastras. Because by, Prabhupada said, intelligence is the next door neighbor of the soul. So if our acceptance of Krishna consciousness is just on the mental platform, today I may accept it and tomorrow I may reject it, because that's the way the mind goes, flip-flop, flip-flop. But when something's fixed by intelligence, then it's strong. When you've analyzed by your intelligence and you see, you've reached a conclusion. So by reading the Shastras, our intelligence becomes engaged. Dharmam samvadam avayo gana yogena tena mishtasyamiti memati. One who reads this conversation of ours is worshiping me by his intelligence, Krishna says. So we should engage our intelligence in knowing the Shastric conclusions, being familiar with regularly hearing narrations of Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srimad Bhagavatam, and so on. Then we'll have a clear vision. And then it's not just on what somebody said on Facebook, and then 5 people liked, and somebody said, "Ah," and someone else said, "How?" and someone else, "Ah." And you've got that surging Facebook energy, and so you're sort of like carried along with the crowd in whatever direction they're going. Better to be guided by Shastra and strong sadhana and reliable, experienced devotees. Is that okay? And not that you can't be critical. Pessimistic, as it were. It probably looked at it from another point of view that's called realistic. that famous letter to a Treya Rishi where Prabhupada said, you can expect utopia. That everything will be exactly right and there'll be no problems. And that's not reasonable. There may be some problems. And still I'll stick. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, we have one Diksha Guru and we have multiple Shiksha Gurus. Now, let's say if the Diksha Guru does not fall down, so when we say the word spiritual master, can it mean to the Shiksha Guru also, or is it only for the Diksha Guru? Or is there any difference between Diksha Guru and Shiksha Guru?
Some places it said that the Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru are equal and identical manifestations of Krishna. One initiates and another instructs, but they're basically both representing Krishna. So, yes, in the event that there's some instability or question about the Diksha Guru, then one may take shelter of the Shiksha Guru for guidance and instruction and inspiration and so on.
But otherwise, like many times we don't have association of Diksha Guru so much. So like many times we don't have personal association of Diksha Guru all the time. So then can we take guidance from Shiksha Guru?
That's what he's for. Prabhupada one time said that Shiksha Guru is the person who supports what you've learned from your Diksha Guru. Just like in so many of our temples, the Diksha Guru is not there, but there's a temple president, there are senior devotees. So they're instructing us, they're guiding us. No, not that we say, wait a second, you're not my guru, why should I listen to you? We take it that they're representing our guru, or they're representing Krishna, so they're, what would you say, supporting the same cause.
So our love and respect for the Shiksha Guru should be same like that of Diksha Guru, or is there?
They're, it's not thank you. It's not legislated that every morning you have to check and see whether you have equal love for your Shiksha Guru and your Diksha Guru. Everything is personal, and they may, what should we say, nourish different aspects of your spiritual life. You get inspiration about this from the Shiksha Guru and something else from your Diksha Guru. And the idea is that it's supposed to be a joint effort. Everyone is helping you come back to Godhead. The Shiksha Guru, the Diksha Guru, the Vaishnavas, the books, the Lord. Everyone is pulling together to bring you back to Godhead. So we should see that way. On the spiritual platform, we see how they're engaged in the service of Krishna and helping me engage in the service of Krishna. And it should not that it should be conflict, but that there should be everybody's rowing in the same direction.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, just going off the topic a little bit.
We're already off the topic.
So like book distribution, this marathon is going on, Maharaj, regarding this. We have seen like Prabhupada said many times how book distribution pleases him. And so whenever Prabhupada talked about this distributing books, was he talking about his books or books in general of any ISKCON devotee after him also will please him?
Well, he was generally talking about his books when he said distribute books. Sometimes he would say distribute my books. But it wasn't exclusive, that I only want my books distributed. Make sure you don't distribute anybody else's books. Prabhupada had us publish books by his disciples. Swarup Damodar Maharaj Krishna, the supreme scientist, Satsvarup Maharaj, Readings in Vedic Literature. Under Prabhupada's direction, BBT published these books. Songs of the Vaishnavacharyas, Jayadvaita Swami. So, and it wasn't that Prabhupada said print them, but make sure you don't distribute them. The Back to Godhead, he wanted us to distribute more and more, and mostly it was written by his disciples. He would have one article, maybe another page, but mostly it was written by his. But Prabhupada said, actually, I've written all the articles. He said they should just be divided under different names. So Srila Prabhupada approved of publishing the writings of his disciples and distributing that literature. And naturally, Prabhupada's books will, I don't think we have to have legislation or something. I could be wrong, but Prabhupada, naturally there's an enthusiasm, especially to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. But other books will also support and further the mission of Prabhupada's books. People will read someone else's book and say, I want to read Bhagavad Gita as it is. I want to read, what is this Srimad Bhagavatam? Let me read that. Whether he's a scientist or he's whatever the field may be. By reading that book, he may think, let me read these other books. So I don't see that there's a conflict. And certainly Prabhupada, he criticized, in fact, his godbrothers that devotees would go, where Prabhupada would see that at Gaudiya Math they were still distributing the same books that had been published during Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's time, and nothing new. Nothing since then, like 40 years later, 50 years later, the same books. Prabhupada criticized them. So it was expected that devotees should write books. He wanted the Srimad Bhagavatam to be completed. In his last days, he was training Pradyumna how the book should be continued. Not that it'll always be up through chapter 14 of the 10th canto and that's it. But the work should be completed. Is that okay? Yes.
On the same topic of books, different kind of, what about like reading books written by other devotees when I haven't finished Srimad Bhagavatam? Like maybe this book is inspiring me right now in my Krishna consciousness, but
Again, I don't know of a Vedic injunction or a Prabhupada rule that until you've finished, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, until you've read all those books, you can't read any other book.
Yeah, I've heard people say that though. People have said, yeah.
Ask them their authority. Now naturally we want to get a good foundation in Prabhupada's books. These books are, Prabhupada said, the law books for the next 10,000 years. These are our standard reference points for understanding Krishna consciousness. So we want to read all of Srila Prabhupada's books and study them and read them again and so on. But it's not that till we've finished that, gone through them all at least once or reached such and such point, all right, now you can read, some other book. As you probably experienced, reading that book may encourage you in your devotional practice, and your reading of Prabhupada's books may give you further inspiration and so on. So why should you not? but then you don't want to lose Prabhupada's books that I read. I only read new books, It's something new. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's new. And we go to Loya Bazaar, what's new? That's, the other way to go wrong, that I only read new books. But read Prabhupada's books, and then other books you may also read. They may be a good contribution for you.
Thank you.
Yes. Sarma.
What does independently thoughtful mean? Sometimes independence is a bad.
What does independently thoughtful mean? I don't know. I have to ask my GBC man. While reading the books, you have a brain. Well, the reader is presumed to have a brain, so the devotees should read the book and think about it. Or we've received instructions, we should consider the instructions and think about it. Not that we only look to sort of a pre-digested answer, a canned routine, and this is what we do. When we have a question, we can ask. When we have an inspiration, what about spreading Krishna consciousness this way? And then you may have some good ideas. And then we may consult senior devotees. I had this idea, that idea. But it's not that we always have to go someplace else to find out what we should think. You have intelligence. You should use it in Krishna service, guided by the Guru, guided by the Shastras. And then with independent intelligence, Prabhupada used independent intelligence to form ISKCON and do so many things with it. So it doesn't mean, what's the word? Intelligence run wild. Prabhupada called that over-intelligence. Don't be over-intelligent, Prabhupada would say, or more intelligent than the spiritual master. Not independent of the spiritual master, independent of the Shastras, but within the realm of the Shastras and the Guru. Let me think about what I've read. Let me think about what I've heard. See what I can do. See what I can contribute. See what I should do. Sometimes we have one devotee. He was, I think, the first disciple of Bhakti Charumarsh, Chaitanya Das, in Kolkata. And he felt inspired that by Bhakti Charumarsh and wanted to accept him as spiritual master. But back in those days, there was a system, zonal guru, and you could only accept the person who was one of 11 zonal gurus, and no one else could be accepted. And not only that, but it had to be the guru from your zone. So Chaitanya Das said, then I'll wait. That's independently intelligent.
As Krishna devotees in this line, we have the perfect answers to the perfect questions. And we are often trained to give a specific answer to some questions that come up. And it seems like because we have all these answers that our own process stops. We are not really going internally anymore, researching, stopping the growth. What a dialogue there.
Well, sometimes, it's appropriate for growth to stop. Once you've learned that 2 + 2 = 4, you have to keep revisiting and say, now, what does it really equal? And how do I know that it equals 4? And couldn't it possibly be 7? And, unless you're into quantum physics or something, basically, once you've learned something, that's good. And somebody asks you how much is 2 and 2, you don't have to think about it. And, well, I don't know. It's known. So there's so many things, including things we read today, where we don't have to think about it. Why is this true? How do I know? We've digested it already. We've already asked the questions. We've already kicked the tires, as they say. We've already challenged it in our mind and considered all the objections and so on. Okay, we're done. So we don't have to haul it up and again inspect it. So why does it have to grow? It's already mature. The mango is ripe. You don't say, well, it stopped growing. Good. Enjoy. So that's there, not that everything has to be. We should be willing. Sometimes the Goswamis will look at something that's, well established, and they'll ask, how is this so? And it's relishable when you read that in the commentary, something that you just say, well, that's what Bhagavatam says. But they interrogate it. How is it that it says that Krishna was in his Kishore age when it appears that he was in his Praganda age? And then they Shastra Vichar, they start looking in the Shastras and they find an answer. So that's exciting, scientific research. That's exciting. But not that everything has to be reviewed and reviewed and reviewed and reviewed and reviewed. And that's another way we don't make any progress. Yeah.
Sometimes when the mind says, oh, I know this already, I heard it before, then the absorption stops. How can we prevent
Well,
that?
we may have already absorbed it. It's not that everything has to be strikingly new. Now, I may get a new perspective on something, or something may happen so that I get a new light on something. I know that I'm not this body, but something happens and it becomes like headline news. But it's not that unless something's happening like that, you always have to feel like, wow, it's just dull, And in fact, we repeat these conclusions. We preach to people, or we read among devotees, and there's a freshness to it. Even the old stuff, the stuff that we've heard 1,000 times, we hear it again, and still there's something new about it. And especially when you preach to new people, the stuff that that we fall asleep on in Bhagavatam class, they hear it and it's like, wow, totally revolutionary for them. And then we realize how much power there is in what we already know, what we already accepted, what we've already absorbed, what we've stopped questioning. It's powerful. And you can realize that when you're preaching to new people. Also, Satam Prasangat Mama Virya Sambhado, when we discuss these things among devotees, the new power, new energy, new strength is gained. Satam Prasangat Mama Virya, in the association of devotees. Therefore, this is what we do. We discuss Krishna Katha in the association of devotees. If I were sitting here alone, it would be really dull for me. But because all the devotees here are here, then I learn something. Now, regarding time, it's come to an end. We'll carry on. Oh, tomorrow is Saturday. I think Kanamakana Maharaj will give a class as usual tomorrow. It's Gita Jayanti tomorrow, but I don't think that affects anything. It doesn't affect our schedule, I mean. It affects so many other things. Shall we continue tomorrow? Yeah, okay. Maybe 5:30? Should we give it an extra half hour, or should we just carry on? You won't be able to come before 5:30, I know that. The sound man can't be in both places at once. Unless he expands himself. Yeah, we were talking about that. He can be independently thoughtful. How do I know? This is independently thoughtful. No one asked Pavan Prabhu to put together this whole rig, which Kadambakananda Maharaj is using, I'm using. Nobody, the GBC or the sannyasis or his Guru Maharaj, no one told him to do it. But being independently thoughtful, he thought this would be a good contribution. Okay, so it will be 5 o'clock tomorrow. Be sure you get prasadam on your way out. Those who haven't gotten a book yet are welcome to get one. And let us chant Hare Krishna. Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Paripradikacharya Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anant Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sikho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kunigiri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamana Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande.